Man, oh man, from the early 70s to the close of that decade, today's featured band was flying high, having written a litany of beloved rock era hits that we all still sing today, as well as some classic rock standards that were never released as singles that we're all still singing today. But Life in the Fast Lane left this 100 million plus record hit machine running on empty. Quick tempers, infighting, and backstage brawls would plague this band of guitar-slingers for the long run, and their eventual breakup was only a matter of time. But today, we're re-examining their incredible story through the lens of some of their most iconic tracks. We're doing Evolution, baby. Hits that were written in unexpected places, like a broke-down road trip, a locked-up nightclub, a hot dog restaurant, and one that was about California's most sinister and haunting locale. The drama unfolds with some special guests next on Professor of Rock. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. If you remember any of these Fisher-Price toys growing up, you're going to dig this channel of deep musical nostalgia. Make sure to subscribe below right now. Click the big red button and click the bell, the notification bell. So you always know when our latest and greatest come out. We have some really great interviews coming out. Weird Al's coming. Look for it. Also, check us out on Patreon and check out our merch. That helps us keep it a daily channel. It's all about keeping the music alive through the stories. So it's time for another episode of our series, Evolution. This is the show where we tell the story of a band's career through 5 defining tracks, just 5. Now, these may not be a band's most popular songs, and they may not even be my personal favorites. But each song takes you from the beginning to the end of a band's journey and showcases the evolution of their sound and their artistic direction. Today, we're featuring one of America's greatest bands, probably America's band of the 70s. Technically called Eagles, but most of us add the in front of it, right? After having done several episodes of Evolution, I've realized that for most bands that we cover, capturing their story in just 5 songs is nearly impossible. This is especially true for Eagles. So starting today, I'm actually going to bump that song total up to 6 defining tracks. Then I won't cheat and add a tie in there somewhere or an honorable mention. It also had to be done because when I do Pink Floyd, that's going to be nearly impossible to do 5. So let's see how it goes. So coming together in Los Angeles, California in 1971, Eagles were formed out of Linda Ronstadt's backing group. You had Glenn Frey, previously of Long Branch Penny Whistle on guitar, Bernie Ledden of the Flying Burrito Brothers also on guitar, Randy Meisner, formerly of Poco, and Rick Nelson Stone Canyon Band on bass, and of course Don Henley of Shiloh was on the drums. Additionally, all 4 musicians also contributed to vocals. Perfect vocals. Legendary singer-songwriter Jackson Browne brought the group to the attention of David Geffen, who gave the band a $100,000 advance, and he sent them to Colorado to put together an act. So a month later, they were signed to Asylum Records. So coming in at number 6, our first track today, we're going to go chronologically like we always do. This one's an all-time standard that showcases Eagles' unique brand of country rock music. It helped their 1972 self-titled debut album become a bestseller, going platinum in the US and putting them on the map. The success of this initial offering kicked off their first single and our first Evolution pick, of course, Take It Easy. Easy, take it easy. Co-authored by Jackson Browne and Glenn Frey, the origins of Take It Easy actually lie with Browne, who had also signed a deal with Asylum Records. The pressure to compose hit songs for his debut album was overwhelming him. He'd spent months crafting his material, but he just hit a wall and needed to get out of LA to clear his head. So searching for inspiration, Jackson Browne took a road trip to the Hopi Reservation of northeastern Arizona. But he only got as far as Winslow, Arizona, because his 1953 Jeep broke down. Now, stranded for 2 days, Jackson turned his engine-troubled adventure into an American rock standard called Take It Easy. Don't let the sound of your own wheels drive you crazy. Said Jackson Browne, and I quote him, "I took a road trip in this old beat-up Willis Jeep and I went to Utah and Arizona. Now, on that trip, I started to write Take It Easy. When I came back, I played it for Glenn Frey. He asked if the Eagles could cut it when it was done." End of quote. So reportedly, Jackson didn't know how to finish the song, so when Glenn Frey, who they lived in the same building. He told him how much he liked it, and he turned it over to Glenn. Glenn finished the second verse. Yeah, that lyric is, "It's a girl, my lord, in a flatbed Ford, slowing down to take a look at me." Actually, Jackson wrote most of it after he hitchhiked a ride on his way back. Lord, in a flatbed Ford, slowing down to take a look at me. Thumbing a ride. It's kind of cool. Eagles recorded Take It Easy and used it as the first song on their first album and also their first single. Fry acknowledged that Brown did most of the work on the track and was very generous in sharing the writing credit. Take It Easy was released on May 1st, 1972, a month ahead of Eagles' debut album. And with the smooth harmonies of the other bandmates, Henley, Meisner, and Ledden, Take It Easy became the Eagles' first huge hit. It reached number 12 on the Billboard Hot 100. So take it easy. The single set the tone for the rest of the album, which went to number 22 on the U.S. Albums chart, as well as the rest of the Eagles' 70s catalog. No question. So coming in at number 5, our next Eagles Evolution track also comes from the band's debut album. I usually don't pick two from one album, but this one's a doozy. It was written at a Wiener Schnitzel by an outside songwriter, Jack Tempchin. The song is Peaceful Easy Feelin'. San Diego singer-songwriter Jack Tempchin wrote Peaceful Easy Feelin' sometime around 1969. One night after a club gig in El Centro, Jack stuck around trying to hook up with a waitress, but she left, she didn't come back, and he had no ride home, and he actually got locked in the club, so he crashed on the floor, but he couldn't sleep, so he grabbed his guitar and he started to compose this song. He wrote lyrics on the back of one of his flyers that was announcing his concert. Tempchin finished Peaceful Easy Feelin' kind of in stages. He made his way to LA, where he hung out at the Troubadour along with Glenn Frey, Jackson Browne, J.D. Souther, and also some other California up-and-comers. So he was staying with Jackson Browne one day when Glenn Frey came over, and he heard Tempchin playing the song. I know you won't let me down. Tempchin made a cassette recording for Frey, who came back the next day with a demo he had worked up with his band that had been the backing band for Linda Ronstadt. He said, this band's going to be called Eagles. And he's like, okay, Jack finally finished the song at a hot dog restaurant, Wiener Schnitzel, and he later got awarded a golden wiener for his trouble. Here's what Jack said about that.
One day I finally came to the last verse, and I sat down at the Der Wiener Schnitzel on Washington Boulevard and waiting for this Polish dog, and I wrote the last verse to Peaceful Easy Feeling. And then life is strange because 40 years later, they celebrated that day, and they had newspaper people come, and the Der Wiener Schnitzel people, and the place was still there. So many things had changed in 40 years. I would never thought that this hot dog place would still be there. But the company presented me with a solid gold wiener. So
better than a Grammy.
It's not the Songwriter Hall of Fame, but nobody else has one,
That's right. Released as the third single from the debut record, Peaceful Easy Feelin' reached number 22 on the Hot 100. And what a song. On the ground. So coming in at number 4, our next Evolution track might be the pinnacle of country rock. After Eagles released their self-titled debut, the band returned to the studio in 1973 to record their multi-platinum sophomore set, Desperado, an Old West-themed album inspired in part by a Wild West photo book as a gift given to Glenn Frey by Jackson Browne. Jackson comes in again. The book featured stories of infamous outlaws, including one about Bill Dalton and Bill Doolin. That's where Doolin Dalton came from. That struck a chord with Frey. Glenn Frey saw a connection between his life as a struggling singer-songwriter and the gunslingers of the West and began turning the Old West concept into an album's worth of songs. Doolin Dalton. Desperado, the album, only made it to number 41 on the Billboard album chart, actually falling 19 spots short of its predecessor, Sophomore Jinx. Eagles would release 2 singles from the album, Tequila Sunrise and Outlaw Man. Neither of them would break the top 40. However, one album cut would go down in history as an all-time classic rock standard. The title track, Desperado. Of course, my third Evolution song. Desperado. Don Henley began writing parts of Desperado in the late 60s when he was in his teens, but it wasn't arranged into a song until his songwriting teammate Glenn Frey came along. In fact, Desperado was the first song that Don Henley and Glenn Frey wrote together, if you can believe that, marking the beginning of one of the most legendary songwriting teams of the rock era. A team that doesn't get as much credit, I think, as they deserve. Why don't you come to your senses? Henley explained in the liner notes for The Very Best of the Eagles, he said, and I quote, "Glenn came over to write one day and I showed him this unfinished tune that I had been holding for so many years. I said, when I play it and sing it, I think of Ray Charles and Stephen Foster. It's really a Southern Gothic thing, but we can easily, make it more Western." Now, according to Don, Glenn jumped right on it, filling in the gaps and giving the song some structure. Frey, for his part, remembers when he heard Desperado for the first time. He said that Don had originally written it for a friend named Leo. So the song actually started out, "Leo, why don't you come to your senses? You've been out riding fences for so long now." As it was, Leo would merely be a placeholder for the lonely Desperado. You've been out riding fences for so. And turns out the Eagles, they'd run out of money and studio time at that moment, actually when they recorded Desperado. Apparently, Don Henley only had 2 chances to nail the song. That's what they had left. Of course, he did it. Long now. Oh, you're a hard one. Eagles included Desperado on their greatest hits 1971 through 1975 album, which would go on to sell over 40 million copies here in America and be the biggest selling album in history here in America. The unreleased Desperado was a big part of that success. Let somebody love you. So coming in at number 3 on our Eagles Evolution Countdown is the ultimate encore song and the band's secret weapon, if you ask me. The backup singer whose tenor voice would melt the coldest of hearts. It's Take It to the Limit, their third single from One of These Nights. Eagles' fourth album, 1975's One of These Nights, was the band's first #1 album here in America. During this time, the band would also see the first of multiple lineup changes with the addition of guitarist Don Felder in 1974. Then there was the departure of Bernie Leadon in 1975. For the record, guitarist Joe Walsh would also join up in 75. Of course, Randy Meisner would leave in 1977, being replaced by Timothy B. Schmidt. But, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's get back to Take It to the Limit. Okay, so Don Henley, Randy Meisner, and Glenn Frey all co-wrote this incredible song. As we all know, Randy Meisner actually sang lead on it, making it one of just 3 top 40 Eagles tracks not sung by Glenn Frey or Don Henley. The other ones were I Can't Tell You Why, sung by Timothy B. Schmidt, also In the City, sung by Joe Walsh, and of course Meisner's song here. But man, Randy Meisner, backup singer, he took center stage with Take It to the Limit. It became a highlight of the band's live show, the ultimate encore song. I mean, Eagles already had 2 distinct and made for primetime voices in Don Henley and Glenn Frey. And of course, Randy Meisner had one of the most beautiful voices in music as well, especially on this song. Meisner from rural Nebraska was the most subdued member of the band, describing himself as shy and nervous about putting myself on the line. Speaking about the song, Meisner explained, and I quote, "The line Take It to the Limit was to keep trying. You reach a point in your life where you feel you've done everything and you've seen everything. It's part of getting old. And just to take it to the limit one more time, like every day, just keep punching away at it." That was the line. And from there, the song, it took a different course. The song should have been the zenith of Randy's career. However, on a fateful night backstage in Knoxville, Tennessee in the summer of 1977, Take It to the Limit was a coup de grace that led to his exit from the supergroup that he helped create. Randy Meisner was allegedly too sick to sing his encore Spotlight classic rock hit with its legendary high note finale. He just couldn't do it. He couldn't hit it. That's what everybody always looked forward to. He and Glenn Frey got into a shouting match backstage on tour that night, and it got really ugly when Randy punched Glenn in the face. Police tried to break it up, but Don Henley called them off. The infamous incident sealed Randy's fate as a member of one of the Eagles. Take It to the Limit became the Eagles' fourth top 5 single on the Billboard Hot 100. It went to number 4, but it should have been a number 1 hit, let's be honest. So coming in at number 2, but really the number 1 Eagles song ever and a viable candidate for the greatest classic rock song ever recorded, if not the greatest dual guitar solo ever. For my next Evolution track, gotta go with Hotel California. You knew that this one was coming. It's just unavoidable. Hotel California is a song that every band dreams of writing. It's still as popular and as perplexing as it was the day it came out. Hotel California became the Eagles' signature song, a psychological tale of a man precariously caught in a disturbing asylum, from which he may never escape. Songwriters Henley, Frey, and Felder wanted the song to open like an episode of The Twilight Zone. This song was so epic that 2 guitar players, Joe Walsh and Don Felder, wrote a solo side by side that took 3 days to finish. Hotel California has inspired a dozen theories of what it really means. But, a little bit of background and maybe you come to your own conclusion. Don Felder was excited to play on his first album with the Eagles in 1975. On one spectacular sunny day in July of 75, Don was sitting on the beach outside his rented home in Malibu. He was tinkering on an acoustic guitar and he started playing the intro of what would become Hotel California. Felder played the sequence over and over again, and the more he played it, the more he thought it was pretty awesome. So he went back to one of the back bedrooms where he had a reel-to-reel tape recorder and a microphone. Felder recorded his guitar part several times, and then he rejoined his family on the beach. Kind of forgot about it. Felder also added beats from a Rhythm Ace drum machine and a 12-string guitar version of his sequence to fatten up the track, to include it on a 15-track demo tape to submit to Henley and Frey. Clearly, the instrumental with its Latin flavor was a future hit. Glenn Frey and Don Henley were both taken with the song after hearing the demo, and they discussed, concepts for the lyrics. The pair wrote most of the words, which Henley called a journey from innocence to experience. Elaborating, Don said that Hotel California, it's about materialism, excess, and the dark underbelly of the American dream. In Henley's words, and I quote, "It was really about the excesses of American culture and certain girls that we knew. But it was also about the uneasy balance between art and commerce." So good. So with that in mind, Hotel California isn't specifically targeting the decadence of Southern California, but rather it serves as a microcosm for the rest of America and for the self-indulgence of our entire culture, the 70s. Hotel California was an undeniable hit in the U.S. and internationally. It went to number 1 of the Billboard Hot 100. It also went to the top 10 in the Netherlands, Germany, Spain, Switzerland, Norway, France, the UK, New Zealand. It also claimed number 1 in Canada. It was a worldwide smash. It still is. Just an incredible song. You take that song away from Eagles and they're not the same band. It's Stairway to Heaven for Led Zeppelin, the same thing, Don't Stop Believing for Journey. Just one of those songs that every band dreams of, like I said. Okay, for our final Evolution track to wrap it all up, we go to Eagles' entrance into the 80s. It's the Bob Seger, J.D. Souther, Don Henley, and Glenn Frey penned Heartache Tonight. So the Eagles had dominated radio for most of the 70s, right? They were coming off one of the biggest selling albums and title tracks ever with Hotel California. I mean, they were so big, some were calling them the American Beatles. However, the band was beginning to come apart at the seams. As noted, tempers were flaring, and band members were leaving, or they were getting ousted. The long run would be the Eagles' final studio album until they reformed in '94. There continued to be a lot of tension in the band, and with Hotel California in the books, there was a lot of pressure to follow it up with another groundbreaking album. The band would spend 3.5 years working on this record. That's usually where it comes apart. But despite the years it took to put together, the long run never had a chance of matching its illustrious and mega-selling predecessor. It's just the way it is. Heartache tonight, I know. Even so, the LP did sell 7 million albums. Not bad. That was just in the States, and it did produce 3 top 10 singles, including the band's final Hot 100 #1 hit. And our final Evolution pick here today, Heartache Tonight. So like I mentioned, Heartache Tonight was written by Don Henley, Glenn Frey, Bob Seger, and J.D. Souther. Souther, who is sometimes considered an unofficial Eagle, he was the first person that Frey met when he moved to Los Angeles back in the late 60s. So Jackson Browne, Glenn Frey, J.D. Souther, they all lived in the same building. He's one of the most prolific songwriters in history. Souther actually co-wrote multiple hits for the Eagles, including Best of My Love and New Kid in Town. I give you the best of my love, the New Kid in Town. Coming up, JD's going to tell us the first-hand account of Heartache Tonight, a hit that was written and recorded when the Eagles were at each other's throats and about to break up. But let me explain. Heartache Tonight came out of a jam session with Glenn Frey and J.D. Souther, but they just couldn't nail down the chorus. So later, Glenn called his buddy Bob Seger, and he sang the song over the phone. Amazingly, Seger, well, I'll let J.D. tell you. Here it is.
Glenn was talking on the phone to Bob, and he said, "Hey, we got this song we can't seem to finish." And he sang it to Bob, and Bob sang him the chorus. He went, "Oh, okay." That was the chorus.
So after that, the Eagles would break up for a good long while. They'd go after solo careers. But even though Don Henley said that the band would get back together when hell froze over, they indeed got back together in 1994. And in the middle of hip-hop, in the middle of grunge, in the middle of alt-rock, they hit #1 all over again. They're still selling out arenas. So that's it. Those are my top 6 defining tracks that tell the story of the Eagles. Evolution as a band. What do you think? What are your songs? What would you choose for your 6? Maybe 5 in an honorable mention. Maybe that's how we do it going forward. Let me know what you think below. Can you imagine how hard Pink Floyd's going to be to do this? Because they're an albums band. Anyway, let us know what you think about it. Let's have a great discussion. Let's celebrate the Eagles. What are your 5 favorite from them, or the 5 that tell their story? If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe below. We would love to have you as part of our community. Till next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friend.